back to Profs Talk Art, where Davidson professors talk about works in our collection through the lens of their discipline. Today, we talk with Dr. Scott Denham, the chair of the German Studies Department, whose research interests include German literary and cultural studies, translation, and questions of identity, loss, and memory in the Central European context.
Hi, I'm Scott Denham, and I'm going to tell you about Georgia Blizzard's sculpture Poses. Not because I know anything about Appalachian artists, but because she was a family friend of my parents and me when I was a kid. And Georgia Michael is how I knew her, Georgia Michael, but her artist name is Georgia Blizzard, and I don't know how that came about. But when I was a kid in high school in Washington County, Virginia, there's a town called Glade Spring, and Georgia lived a few miles out of Glade Spring up against a mountain, which is the south side of what becomes Clinch Mountain, which separates the Blue Ridge and the Iron Mountain Range from the coal fields. And so this is on the front side of that. And when I was in 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, my family, my mom and dad, Bob Denham, class of 61, and my mom, Rachel Denham, who were both college teachers, mom was a high school teacher at the time, were part of a kind of a hyper-local arts scene. And one member of that was Georgia Blizzard, and another was a man named Mike Martin, who is Jack McMichael Martin, class of 58 or 7, 50s, Davidson, whose father, Greer Martin, was president of Davidson in the 50s and 60s before Sam Spencer. And Mike Martin was a poet, and at the time was kind of a hermit, a recluse poet, and lived in a little cabin on top of the hill behind Georgia's house, which was a mile or so walk through the woods to get to Michael Martin. And my dad, who was an English professor at Emory College, had a little letterpress, sort of fine handmade books and broadsides, and he printed some of Mike's poems. They were friends, knew each other from Davidson. And so this was, like 10 miles from where I grew up. And so we would go out sometimes and walk up the mountain to see Mike and find whatever new poems he had, and then come and meet Georgia, who dug clay from behind her little house and would make these sort of dream-like, expressionist in a way, sculptures. And this one called Poses with a Z has, it seems, sort of different dream figures in different poses, different attitudes, teeth bared, more at rest, maybe pensive or sad, speaking. And there were many of these. And here's another bigger one. She also made pots, so vessels, open vessels with faces around the sides that I saw a lot. And she would dig the clay and then fire these in a wood-fired pit. So hot wood coals in a big hole, like maybe 6 feet across, and then set the pieces down in there to fire. And so you can see, the ash marks here and there. And they're all different colors too. Some of them she would mix some pigment in the clay. Mike Martin, because of his connections to the Academy and Davidson College, had access to gallery people and art critic people that she didn't have. Georgia was a very local person and lived and stayed in her place. She is a part indigenous person and was related to Cherokee people, not a member of a card-bearing member, but that was very much part of her identity, was to be a native person in the Southern Appalachians. And Mike introduced some of her work to a gallerist in Atlanta, and I don't know the details of this, but Roger Manley, class of 1974 who took this photograph at about the same time I was there. So this is exactly how I remember her when I was in high school. Roger Manley would know that information. He's just retired from the gallery director at NC State. And that connection, I suspect, between Roger and Mike Jack McMichael Martin and Roger Manley, brought Georgia and her work into circulation. And so now she's recognized at the Smithsonian and at galleries around, and there's a market for her works. That's kind of what I know. So this piece, my parents owned, Bob and Rachel Denham. And so this was always on the shelf in our living room growing up. And about, I think, 11 or 12 years ago, they decided to give this to Davidson College. So here it is. Come and see it.
What do you think of this work? We have over 4,000 works spanning 5 centuries in our collection. If you want to see more, you can view the collection around campus, online through the collection portal, on our website, and by appointment and collection storage at the Belk Visual Arts Center. We look forward to your visit.